Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Susan, if you wouldn't mind keeping an eye on your waiting room just in case somebody else appears, we'll let them in.
Yeah, I will, not to worry.
Okay, we have with us the fabulous Susan Schutz. She is a Chinese metaphysics master with many, many years of experience. She lives in Hong Kong and she focuses on several readings that we're going to explain in a bit, and also Feng Shui audits. These Feng Shui audits are about moving the energy from the outside to the inside of your house. There's a lot of misconceptions about Feng Shui, especially with the New Age Feng Shui. If anybody wants to find out more information about the audits, because they're for your house and for commercial premises, just let me know, because that's a different topic, but it's one of the main aspects of Chinese metaphysics. That and the readings. Susan focuses on different readings. Period 9, which is preparing everybody on finances and career for the next 20 years, Basi astrology readings, forecast for the year, Steam and Dunya, if anybody wants to know the spiritual superpower and how to work with it, is very, very interesting. Mine is the power of manifestation, so I just manifested you all here today. Susan is going to guide us a little bit more about what to expect for period 9, which is going to last for the next 20 years and only started this February. And there's some very, very interesting insights. And thank you very much, Susan. I will leave the floor for you.
Thank you for that glowing introduction. I hope I can live up to the expectations. So, okay. So as Lisa mentioned, we're going to talk a lot about this thing that is called period 9, but the first thing we're going to look at is actually the year 2024 itself, the year of the wood dragon, because it is a pivotal year in the next 20-year period. It's a year where we see a lot of, we're going to see a lot of drama, a lot of upheavals, and it is essentially the start to an entire new era, energetically speaking. And this is why the year of the wood dragon is so important. Now, when we look at whether a year is going to be smooth or chaotic, we usually look at the birth chart of the year. We call this a natal chart. And the year 2024 was born on the 4th of February at 4:45 p.m. So it's the Chinese year. It doesn't go from January 1st to December 31st. It always starts on February 4th, but at different times on that day. Now, obviously, this chart is not going to tell you that much. If you're not a Chinese metaphysics practitioner, all you see is just a lot of Chinese characters. But usually, as practitioners, we plot this chart to look at the components, to look at the setups in the chart, to look at what the energies are like, because just one glance at this can tell us a lot about the year is going. And when we saw this chart, we were not very happy because it's a very upsetting chart. There's a lot of upheavals, there's a lot of arguments, a lot of fighting, and a lot of accidents. And just generally, it's a disastrous chart. So if this was the chart of someone I'm dating, I would not marry that person, yeah, unless that person is very rich and there's an inheritance coming my way, because this is a disaster chart. Now, if we could imagine, if we could imagine a person that is actually attached to this chart, we would imagine Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee is a very, very famous, is a world famous martial arts star who died a few years ago, but he had almost the identical birth chart than the birth chart for the year 2024. And Bruce Lee's life was, from a professional perspective, very successful, but on a personal level, very tragic. He also suffered a lot of injuries, and ultimately he died at a very, very young age. I think he was only about 32. And the only good thing is that we remember him to this day because he was so famous. And so this is essentially what 2024 is going to be like. It's a year full of natural disasters. You know, the flooding in Dubai is one of these things. There's volcano eruptions, whatever. So it's a year full of natural disasters, full of human disaster, human tragedy. I mean, just look at the wars that are going on everywhere. It is not a great year, but it's a year we will remember for a long time because it was so shit. So this is essentially what we're looking forward to. And so when we prepare for a year, looking at this natal chart, the birth chart of the year, helps us determine what we need to do, because the year is going to happen with you or without you. You're a victim of these occurrences, or whether you can actually benefit from them is entirely up to you. It depends on how you prepare. Yeah, there's a lot of people, for example, who got very rich during COVID. So it's a matter of preparation. It's a matter of how you use even a disastrous year to make it the best year that you can possibly imagine for yourself. Yeah, so it's an individual thing. Now, looking at what's going to happen politically this year, I mean, we see a lot of that already happening. The China-US tensions are rising. It's not to say that there's going to be an all-out war. We don't see that happening at all. But the tension between China and the US are going to increase and are going to be quite fierce at times. And there is a lot of competition between these two countries. Now, there is obviously the US election that we're going to look forward to in November this year. I mean, whether we look forward to it or not is a different story. But regardless of who wins this election, we can expect at least 3 years of absolute chaos following that US election. And that's 3 years of chaos within the US. And if there's chaos in the US, there will be chaos everywhere else, because it's still one of the most important superpowers. So this will be extremely messy. And obviously, it will have an impact on the currency fluctuations. So if you are a trader, if you're an investor, I suggest that you look at diversifying your investments. Don't just invest everything in US dollars, yeah? Now, we will also see a lot of leadership crisis and people uprising. Again, just turn on the news. You will see this everywhere at the moment. Leaderships across the board internationally are in a crisis, because the people are simply no longer happy with how they are being led, how they are being governed. And a lot of times it's the students who are rising up, or just the little people who just had enough. And so this creates legitimate crises all over the world. Now, the good thing is that there are new alliances worldwide. So as the superpowers fight among each other, there are smaller countries that finally find a voice, because the big countries are too busy arguing. And so there are smaller countries who will find a voice and who will actually get together and form alliances that can ultimately be very, very powerful. Now, from an economic perspective, this year, what we see is a drop in consumer spending. Everybody is fearful, yeah? And if people are fearful of what's going on, people will spend less money. And so if you're a business owner, that's a massive issue, because if people don't spend money on your products and your services, what do, right? So something needs to change. You as a business owner need to do something to make sure that this does not affect you. There will be a lack of jobs as well. There will be a lot of unemployment, but not a lot of jobs. So the job market is going to be extremely uneven. And if you are currently looking for a job, you will have a harder and harder time finding one as we progress into the year. Now, I know that sounds scary, especially if you are currently out of a job or if you are looking for a new opportunity. But economically speaking, it would make much more sense for you to start something on your own. What is your skill? What is your monetizable skill? You need to make use of this and actually sell it. And you need to perform better than everyone else. Yeah, nobody wants to work with someone who is just half or not even at half par. Yeah, so this becomes more and more critical. Now, we will see, or we are already seeing, the collapse of giants. By that, I mean large corporations who are laying off people en masse. And you see this with Google, you see this with Microsoft, you see this with Apple. People are just being laid off by the hundreds and thousands. And the big giant corporations suddenly struggle as well due to this drop in consumer spending. So working for a big corporation is no longer a safe bet. Now, what is booming is the insurance industry, because if everyone is fearful, everyone wants to insure themselves against major disasters, economic downfalls, currency fluctuations, accidents, whatever. So if you're in the insurance industry, you can benefit from the fear that is generally present in the market these days. Now, obviously, changing workplace trends, and we see this ever since COVID, where a lot of us suddenly could no longer go to an office and just worked from home, or you had to become much, much more flexible in the way you worked. Now, this is not going to go away. Workplaces are going to change to the point where really fewer and fewer people will be needed in person on site, unless it's a customer service sort of job. So if you are at the reception of a hotel, for example, you will still be needed. Although if you go to Japan, that is already being done by robots a lot. So changing workplace trends, you need to adapt to that. Now, from a feng shui perspective, this is actually great. This is great news, because if you work in a large office and you just have one desk in a large office, there's nothing feng shui can do for you at your office. Because in order for a feng shui audit to work, we would have to audit the entire office, and maybe that best spot with the best energies is somewhere, is a corner that is occupied by the CEO. And you can't just walk up to the CEO and say, well, I would like to change desk. This is not happening. However, if you now work from home, at your home, in your home, you have the ability to just go and sit and work from wherever corner you want to. So this actually is extremely beneficial for everyone who works from home, because we cannot just with feng shui help you change your personal life, but more importantly, your professional life. And if we make you more professional, if we make you more successful, if your career works better, you make more money. And then all of these economic and political disasters that are happening all around us don't affect you that much. Now, we do have a bigger talent pool due to the lack of jobs available. So by that, I mean, let's say there's one job, but now instead of 10 people applying, there are 100 people applying for that one job, which means you as a business owner, you can suddenly tap into a much larger talent pool. And most importantly, you can get top talent at rock bottom salaries. Yeah, this is not great for employees, but it is very, very good for business owners. So keep that in mind. Be a little bit more diligent in who you hire, and look at what else is out there. Now, force majeure is usually, the one thing that is very difficult to predict, and it's also what we're most afraid of, because these are just random events that just happen all over the world. Now, we are expecting towards the end of the year something akin to a cyber crisis. Now, what I mean by that is a sort of like technology crisis that is caused by either a really, really big hacking scandal, or some form of AI that is just, that gets out of control. So we are expecting that. And as a business owner, you need to make sure that your systems are secured. Yeah, don't just have open systems where you give everyone access. You need to make sure that you are safe, and that your data and the data of your clients, most importantly, is safe. Now, also lots of travel-related disasters in April, May, and November, especially. So throughout the year, but especially April, May, and November. Now, we have already, since the year began, so since February, we have seen a lot of travel-related disasters. Just think about Boeing. Yeah, and all the airplane parts that were just falling off mid-flight. And so Boeing has had a terrible year so far, and they are in the travel industry, the transport industry. So if you are traveling this year, well, first of all, don't travel on Boeing, go Airbus. But if you're traveling this year, if you can avoid it, don't travel in April, May, or November. If you do, this is where readings such as mine come in, where I can actually check whether you are truly at risk or not. And if you are, then we usually find particular dates or remedies that can somehow weaken that impact. But this is something we will see more and more. Earth-related natural disasters. Earth-related natural disasters is everything from earthquakes, landslides, flooding, because in the floods, essentially entire cities are being washed away, volcano eruptions. And if you just make a quick Google search about whether or not or how many of these have already happened this year, you will see quite a lot. So this is going to increase. And as it pertains to these sorts of natural disasters, they will continue at this rate all the way until probably 26, 27, where we reach the peak. So another 3 years at least. Now, on April 8th, we had a solar eclipse. And a lot of people went out to watch the solar eclipse. I hope you were not one of them. From a Chinese metaphysics perspective, a solar eclipse is one of the most dangerous natural events we could expose ourselves to. Now, it happened across the United States, as you can see here on this map. And as always, a lot of Americans went out, they put on their little goggles so they could actually look at the eclipse. From a Chinese metaphysics perspective, like, our heads explode when we see this, because if you expose yourself to a solar eclipse for just 1 minute, usually for the following 3 to 4 years, you will have financial difficulties and financial disasters happening. Now, the fact that this happened across the US and particularly over DC, Washington, DC, that is why we are foreseeing such a messy US election. Yeah, this was sort of like an omen for what is going to happen. And so hopefully you were not part of this eclipse watching phenomenon. If you were, there are things that can be done about it. And all I'm going to say is, please don't go and watch the next one. Yeah, just stay away from it. Now, how can you prepare for 2024? I know we are already 3 months in, but there's still quite a lot we can do. First of all, if you are investing, delay big investments until the third quarter or after the third quarter. Yeah, the quarter 4 is probably the safest, because we are right now in a period that is leading up to some sort of crisis. We also know, for example, already that by around the year 2027, plus minus 1 year, we are hitting another really, really massive global financial crisis. So you need to diversify your investments. And as I said, don't invest everything in US dollars. This would be a mistake, because the US dollar is going to drop significantly. Also, what we recommend, just generally speaking, focus on spiritual growth. When the world is chaotic, when everything around us is an absolute mess, and when things just don't make sense anymore, we need to look inwards and find stability inside, so that we are not in a fearful state all the time. And so therefore, spiritual growth becomes much, much more important, so that you can ground yourself and center yourself. You also need to have a backup plan. What are you going to do if your current career doesn't work out? What if your biggest client collapses? What happens if you suddenly need to pack up and move? Have a backup plan. It doesn't have to be fully fledged out and completely detailed, but think about what would happen. What would you do if you had to suddenly uproot yourself? Where would you go? What would you do? Because this more and more becomes important in 2024 and moving forward. Now, most of all, upskill. Learn important skills that you currently don't have, but that can make you more valuable as an employee, especially if you're currently looking for a job. Whatever you know right now is not enough anymore, because I can guarantee there are thousands of people out there who know more than you do. And so you need to make yourself stand out. You need to upskill at your own cost sometime. Take a course, do something that you can bring to the table for an employer. If you are already employed, the best way to avoid being fired when the company goes through a crisis is by making yourself indispensable. How do you make yourself indispensable? By being the better employee, by knowing more than all the other employees, by being the mission critical employee. By that, I mean, if you leave, the company definitely goes under. So you need to think about what it is that you can do to grow career-wise and professionally. And that requires that you take a good hard look at yourself. Are you really good at customer service? Are you really good at finance and accounting? Is there something that you need to learn? Maybe you need to learn some management skills. Maybe you need to learn an additional language. Everybody needs to upskill. I personally upskill as well every single year. This year, I am studying a completely new system of Chinese astrology, because there's several systems. And so I'm studying a new one, again, upskilling. It's key. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of energy, but this is what will help you. And lastly, you have to have at least 6 months worth of liquidity. So if you lose your job, you can't just have 1 month worth of cash flow, because what if that cash flow runs out after a month? So whether that's as an individual or as a business owner, you need to make sure that you can survive 6 months without any income. You have to have some sort of emergency fund. You can't just tell me, oh, I'm bad at saving, it will never work. That's your problem. Just keep on telling yourself and you will end up in a big mess. This is a warning year, right? So if you know that you're not great at saving money, or that your life is sort of like money come, money go, then get a financial advisor, someone to help you with this. Not knowing something is not an excuse for not doing it. Yeah. So my grandmaster always says to everyone, don't know how, learn how. And this is exactly what you need to do. Now, why this is also important is because this Wood Dragon year is the first year of period 9. Yeah, period 9 is an energetic era. In Chinese metaphysics, we have altogether 9 periods, 1 to 9. And after 9 periods have been completed, we complete a cycle. Each period lasts exactly 20 years. So period 9 lasts from this year all the way until 2043. So once we reach 2043, we start again at period 1 and start an entire new cycle. Now, what's so special about period 9 is it is associated with the fire element. And the fire element is a very aggressive element. It spreads extremely fast and everything just quickens. So, if an economic crisis happens, it will happen within hours or days, not across weeks and months. So everything suddenly becomes much, much faster, much more competitive. And so the fire period, while a lot of times we do associate the fire element with a lot of positivity, passion, and whatever, this passion can very quickly tilt over into aggression. So that's why it is an important period. Now, you don't have to be afraid of period 9 as such, as long as you get prepared. Yeah, and this first year, 2024, is sort of like a wake-up call for all of us that we need to get prepared for this upcoming 20 years. Now, the upsides, there are obviously upsides to this period 9, is that there will be a very, very strong move towards spirituality, holistic lifestyles, alternative lifestyles across the board during the next 20 years. And that is because everything is so chaotic. Things just don't make sense anymore. People somehow lose perspective. They lose faith in how things used to work. And when people lose faith and when people are in a completely chaotic state, usually they look for answers somewhere else. And that's why everyone who is in a industry that relates to holistic living, wellness, alternative healing, and spirituality will actually thrive in period 9, right? Because this is where people are going to seek answers. Now, the good news is also that female entrepreneurs and female leaders are becoming more and more prominent. They are becoming the powerhouse behind entire economies. If you're a female business owner, that's great news for you. It doesn't mean you can just lean back and wait for all the good things to drop into your lap. You still have to do a lot of work. But we will see more and more women starting businesses and offering solutions to old problems, but in a very, very unique way. You know, in period 8, so the previous 20 years, we saw a lot of men or males succeed in business. You know, Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, Mark Cuban, Elon Musk. Yeah, these were representatives of period 8. People are no longer attracted by these sorts of personalities, characters, and by the values that they bring to the table. And so period 9 is actually a time where where women are going to thrive if you put in an effort and if you make sure that you do the right thing at the right time. Attention is the new currency in period 9. Now, whether you like it or not, you need to put yourself out there. You need to be visible. And you need to be visible not for the shitty things you do. You need to be visible for all the goodness that you bring to this world and that you actually contribute to society. If you're a business owner, you cannot just hope that word of mouth alone is going to help you. You need to you need to make sure that everybody notices you. Yeah, go on social media, learn public speaking, which is extremely important in period 9. Public speaking, if you have not taken a public speaking course yet, take one. This is one skill I can guarantee you will need in period 9. You need to be able to speak in front of a lot of people and inspire them. Make sure that you tap into this new currency of attention any which way you can. And also on the upside, there will be more and more small and independent businesses. So as I mentioned earlier, we will see the collapse of giants, of big corporations, and they will make room for smaller businesses, for independent businesses, for businesses that have completely new and very innovative solutions to existing problems. And so this is, again, one thing where you can contribute. Do you have an idea that you think would be a great idea that would solve a problem that mankind has? Implement that idea, act on it, take action. It is really important, especially if you're a female business owner. Don't talk yourself out of great ideas. This is your time. Yeah. So really, this is very, very important because it's the small businesses in period 9 that will drive the economy forward. Now, the downsides, we will see a disappearance, or maybe not a complete disappearance, but a very shrunken middle class. So because so many people will lose their jobs, that gap between the ultra rich and the ultra poor will increase. And so the middle class, if you are middle class, you know, this is a dangerous time. So in order to make sure that you don't drop into lower middle class or even, you know, into the really rock bottom of the economic scale, you need to do something different now, and you need to act now. You cannot wait. You cannot just say, well, I'm just going to wait until all these wars are over, or until all these upheavals are over. They're not going to be over for 20 years. It's going to be a slow rolling thing, and we just have to adapt. So what do you do on a personal level, on a professional level, to make sure that you are not being made redundant, that you do not lose your status in society? Think about it and don't delay much longer. Global wars will accelerate as well, because fire period, as I mentioned, it is an extremely aggressive time frame. Now, the wars may not all be hot wars like what we see right now in Gaza or in Ukraine. A lot of these wars also happen on the cyber front. Yeah, so cyber attacks between different countries and between different governments. And this is something that maybe as a just a normal citizen, you may not be aware of, or you may not feel immediately. But again, as I mentioned earlier, the next cyber crisis is just around the corner. And if a country is vulnerable to a cyber attack, it will ultimately affect everyone in this country. Because what if the infrastructure shuts down? What if a hospital is being hacked? What if the police is being hacked? Yeah, so you have to prepare for this. Climate change will peak in period 9, and not in a good way, yeah, because so far we haven't done anything really to combat climate change. There's a lot of lip service, but nobody actually does anything. Everybody just says, oh yeah, well, someone else will do something about it. Nah, the government will do something about it. The governments are not doing shit. Nothing is being done to combat climate change. And so this, we will see a peak most likely again around 2027, which is a pivotal year globally, because this is where the energies of fire will really peak and where a lot of upheaval will happen. And in order to prepare yourself, you kind of want to make sure that you have a long-term plan. Where do you want to be professionally, personally in 2027? How do you make sure that you secure yourself against whatever is happening out there? AI, so artificial intelligence and virtual reality, become mainstream. Now, whether that's a downside or an upside is probably, it depends on where you stand on this issue. Obviously, right now, because it's so unregulated, it still has way more downsides than upsides. However, AI and VR will not go away. They will stay with us. It will not go away. And so, especially if you're a business owner, you may want to think about how you could integrate these technologies into whatever it is that you're doing professionally, because sooner or later you will have to catch up, whether you like it or not. You know, when I grew up, I still remember the first computers that were being sold. And at the time, everybody said, oh, it's just for gamers. You know, nobody's going to use this. It's just for gamers. Now, everybody has a laptop and a tablet and a mobile phone, and every single one of them is like 100 times more powerful than the first computer that came on the market. So again, AI and VR right now may be just sort of like a game, and maybe something that's not to be taken too seriously by a lot of people, but I can guarantee you it will become important for your business. And mass layoffs, again, as I mentioned before, we will see more and more of them. As a business owner, benefit from them. You can hire top talent because now it suddenly becomes available. So again, this is not necessarily a downside for business owners. For employees, it is, which is why I'm saying make sure that you cannot be fired. You need to make yourself indispensable. And then we will also see a change in the world order over the next 20 years. So by the end of period 9, the US will no longer be the world superpower. It is very, very likely going to be China. So whether you like China or not is completely irrelevant. Whether you agree with the government or not is completely irrelevant. But the one thing that China has never done, or not in the last few hundred years, it has not started a war. That is not something that can be said about all of the other superpowers like Russia and the US. Yeah. So the Chinese are playing the long game and they're very smart about it. And so it looks already like they're going to come out on top. The Chinese currency, it will become more and more important. So if you are thinking of investing in foreign currency, you know, as I mentioned, don't invest everything in US dollars. Maybe put a little bit aside also for the Chinese yuan. All right. Now, financial crisis, as I mentioned, around 2026, 2027. By then, hopefully, now that you know all this, you've made a game plan. You have some savings set aside for a rainy day. You make sure that you don't invest in stupid stuff, but actually something that relates to period 9. And you make sure that you take advantage of all the trends that period 9 can bring you. And again, especially if you are a female business owner, all of these developments for period 9, they can actually be very, very beneficial for you. And again, even as even wars or really, really bad times can help someone. So one of my clients, she she's in, I think it's a Romanian client. They were making socks, manufacturing socks and exporting them mainly to Eastern Europe. And when the war started between Russia and Ukraine, they lost a big part of the market. The business just crumbled. And so instead of just throwing arms up and be like, oh my God, this is terrible, they adapted. And now they are making bulletproof vests for Ukraine, for the Ukrainian army. So adapt. You can make money even from a crisis. I know it sounds a little bit callous and cruel, but yeah, we all need to survive. And so you need to look at the crisis not as something terrible, but as something where you see opportunities looming in the background. Now, what can you do on a personal level? Again, you can now just bury your head in the sand and be like, okay, hopefully none of this happens to me, and I will hopefully not be affected by any of this. But hope is not a strategy. Hope has never really helped anyone because if you're just hoping, you're not acting. And that's the worst thing that you can do. So this is where Chinese metaphysics comes in, because Chinese metaphysics is a problem-solving tool. It's not just a problem-solving tool, but it's also a tool that can help you mitigate disasters, prepare for disasters, and making the best out of every single year. Even on a global scale, it may not be so great. So the first step is always feng shui. Now, a lot of people always tell me, oh, well, but it's so expensive to get a feng shui audit. Yeah, it is. It is not cheap to get a feng shui audit. But the key is you will get a return on investment 10 times over once you've actually put everything in place. Because you can have a lot of goals in life, a lot of goals in your career, but if the energies in your home or in your office work against you, you are not going to be able to implement those goals. It simply won't happen. And so with period 9, where we are entering a completely new era, all the feng shui remedies that may have worked in the last 20 years become redundant. You need to adjust. And that doesn't mean that you have to knock down walls or make massive changes. Sometimes small tweaks, that's all it takes. So also what I hear a lot is that with, feng shui, we can't do feng shui in Dubai because there's no water, there's no mountains. And to that I say, well, I have practiced feng shui in Dubai for many, many years, coming up to 10 years now. I've also practiced feng shui in other countries, not just in Asia, where there's not a lot of mountains and maybe not a lot of water either. But you're a lay person when it comes to feng shui. Leave it to the feng shui master to determine whether you actually have mountains or water. Yeah, here you can see water. There's a pool. There's definitely water. And these sand dunes, they're not flat. Yeah, so yes, there's not mountains with snow on tops, top, but you still have elevation. So in terms of feng shui, we're not looking at massive mountains only. Elevation is what is needed. And if there is an elevation next to your home that's even just 10 centimeters higher, it is considered an elevation. And for countries like this, for areas like that, we have very, very special feng shui formulas, because feng shui is a methodology that can be practiced across the world. No matter where you are, there are feng shui formulas that can be deployed depending on the geography. So as a feng shui master, we need to be able to understand the geography of a place, to be able to know which formula to even use to make the most of it. So once we know what formula to use, we then determine what is your Qi coverage. So Qi is life force. Qi is the energy that we work with. So are you living in an environment where you have a lot of Qi, a lot of life force, or is it slightly low on Qi, and that's why you're not thriving? And how can we raise the Qi levels in your environment? So this is all something that a feng shui master can actually do. Once we determined what kind of energies you have in your environment, then we check how it flows into your home. And we make sure that it actually flows into your home in the right way. Yeah, from the right door, from the right window, or the right balcony door, for example. And then once it's inside your house, that's then when we do Qi management. Where in the house do we need a particular energy? Do we need an aggressive energy in the bedroom, or a calm energy in the bedroom? Yeah, obviously a calmer energy. So we make sure that the calm energies are directed into areas where you need to relax and rejuvenate, and the more assertive, aggressive, vibrant energies are going to be redirected to places like your home office. Yeah, where you need this to make sure that you have business ideas, implement those ideas, and then actually close deals. So a lot of times people think, okay, well, feng shui is the same for everyone. Yeah, it's just one solution fits all approach. But again, this is the wrong way to look at it. So as you can see here, all of these houses, they look identical. All of them face the same direction, but only this one here has superior feng shui because of the environment, because of the water and the elevation being in the right place. Now, it doesn't mean that the rest don't have positive feng shui or cannot benefit from the environment, but we need different formulas. We need a different approach to make sure that they still tap into the environmental benefits that are around. So the 5 factors of feng shui that we usually look at are the stove, not the entire kitchen, just the stove, the bed, the main door, and the home office. Now, if your main door doesn't receive a whole lot of positive energies, then we also look at the balcony, but that's just secondary. So these are the factors that we usually look into. We don't care about the bathrooms or the storage rooms or the helpers' rooms or whatever. Just these 4 areas are important. If these 4 areas receive positive energies, you are all set. And if one of them doesn't receive positive energies or not as much as you want to, we can even it out by either improving the qi that is there or minimizing the negative effects that you may be suffering from. Now, another approach, another way in which we can prepare ourselves for period 9 and what we need to do is Bazi astrology. So Bazi is Chinese astrology, or at least one of the systems of Chinese astrology. Now, there are several types of readings. One are the Bazi forecasts for the year, where we just take a really, really close look at what is in store for you in any given year. So obviously for 2024, are there any risks that are coming your way financially, professionally, personally, or maybe even on a health from a health perspective? Are there any obstacles, risks, and challenges that you need to be aware of? If you can plan for a health emergency by making a health insurance before you're being hit with a health crisis, you are safe. Yeah, not only is the insurance going to pay, you're also not going to go bankrupt. In terms of wealth, where are the opportunities that you can tap into this year? a lot of times we are surrounded by opportunities, but we don't see them or we don't seize them. And so that's the problem. If you don't tap into the opportunities, then the year is gone before you've even noticed it. And it's just sort of like a wasted year. And again, this year is not a year to waste your energy. You need to take very, very focused action on all levels. Now, the one reading that is really important, especially for period 9, is the Basel Life reading for period 9, where we really look at how does your birth chart resonate with period 9 as a whole. Are you in sync or are you completely out of harmony, and we need to somehow bring you back on track? What personal, professional, and technological shifts do you have to make in order to be more in sync with period 9? Because not everyone likes to likes the rapid shifts to AI and VR and all of that. Not everyone is quick at adapting. But with this particular reading, we can make sure that you know exactly what you need to focus on, and that you, especially as a business owner, you understand what particular business trends are the trends that you need to benefit from, that you need to tap into. What are the key factors that bring your business growth, and what are the key factors that will challenge your business? It's not the same for everyone. And so knowing that in advance, you can mitigate that. Basel astrology is not a forecasting tool. Yeah, I am not a fortune teller. I can just tell you, look, this is what's coming, and then this is what you need to prepare. Whether or not you do it is entirely up to you. Yeah, that's not my job. I'm just telling you what would be best so that you can have peace of mind. Now, another tool that we use frequently is the tool of Zimendunzia. Now, there's a lot to Zimendunzia. It's a massive subject. The one that I focus on at the moment is the Zimendunzia destiny readings, because a lot of people go through these upheavals and at some point they just despair and they don't even know anymore where to turn, what their place is in the world. Yeah. More and more we will see people questioning whether they're even doing the right thing in life, or what their life mission is. What is your life purpose? And so this is what Zimendunzia, what the destiny reading can provide you with information about what your purpose is in life. What is your karmic mission? The moment you start working on your karmic mission, obstacles will just drop away. And so because the universe, you're sending out a message to the universe that, okay, I understand now, I know what to do. I may not be able to fulfill my karmic mission 100%, and that's not even necessary. But as long as you give it a try and you send a message up by trying, the universe will reciprocate 10 times. And with this destiny reading, one of the most important things is to check also what your particular superpower is in terms of spirituality, because each one of us is born with a guardian of destiny, we call them, with a spirit guide, whatever you want to call them. Yeah. And these spirit guides, they are providing us with spiritual tools, individual to every single one of us. It's not the same for everyone, to help us along the way. The universe is not going to send you on this planet with a karmic mission and sort of like a life purpose without also providing you with the tools to make sure you can succeed. And most people have no clue at all what their particular spiritual gifts are. We all have one, but most people don't know about them and don't tap into them. The moment you know how, the moment you know what your gift is, life is going to get smoother. And this is also something that can help for period 9. Now, if you want to know more about period 9, you can go to this, you can scan this QR code. You can read the book I wrote about period 9. It's available on Amazon. It's a very, very quick read, and it will give you much, much more information. But keep in mind that just reading a book about it or just getting a reading is not enough. For period 9, you need to combine the reading with a feng shui audit, because again, I may tell you what kind of personal shifts or technological shifts you need to do or you need to undergo to be in alignment with period 9. But if your space is not in alignment with period 9, you will constantly bump against roadblocks. And this is very, very dangerous at the moment. All right. Now, you can book now with Lisa. I am going to be in Dubai between May 22nd and May 26th. Pre-bookings are required. I absolutely do not take any walk-in appointments. So just to give you an idea, at the moment, I've got a 2 to 3 week waiting list just here in Hong Kong. So if you want to book an appointment with me for a feng shui audit, do make sure you book with Lisa this week, because first come, first serve. All right, so that is it. Do you guys have any questions? Yeah, you can just unmute yourself and just speak up.